The book of Revelation is one of the most symbolic and enigmatic books of the entire Bible. Its strange language and imagery frequently discourage readers from trying to understand the message Revelation is trying to convey.
Well, first of all, it seems so foreign. It's so unfamiliar to us. It just seems like, where does this language come from? And all of the imagery and the symbolism and the numerology, it's just like, how did this even get into the Bible? And so people just really have a difficult time with it, and they don't really quite know what to do with it. And so it's a really major issue of interpretation or hermeneutics. Like, how am I supposed to read this? Because they just so unfamiliar with it.
On the one hand, it's kind of silly that Christians fight about what's the future going to look like, as if anybody really knows, as if the Bible really promises, I'm going to show you exactly what the future looks like. First this will happen, then that will happen, and Vladimir Putin's going to, annex Crimea, and it's in there if you can just look hard enough and find it, and then this will happen, and maybe the Twins will win the World Series. The Bible is not giving a roadmap for the future. The Bible makes promises. This is what God will yet do. This is what we still believe God will do in terms of our salvation, in terms of the reconciliation of the world, but it doesn't give a roadmap about how to get there.
It should matter for you as a Christian because, number one, it is misinterpreted and misread. And so, in part, you kind of want to have a sense of, well, what's really in there? What actually is this book about? I mean, it gets caught up in movies and books and, all kinds of things. But I wonder if people actually sat down and read it. And they're like, oh, that's not there. Oh, that's not there. And so it's sort of a basic information, education piece to sort of make yourself a better reader of the Bible.
I think it matters because what we imagine God's future to look like is going to affect how we live in the present. And so if we imagine a future in which all that really matters is you have to profess belief in Jesus and this whole world is going to be destroyed and God has a place for you somewhere else, well, then some things matter a lot less, don't they?
And it's been used in countless different ways, usually negatively, and so people are scared of it. So they don't want to read it. They don't want to go near it because it's been used to predict the end of the world and, predict like who's going to take over and destroy the world, or when's the end of the world going to be, and who's 666, and who's the Antichrist, even though Antichrist is never in the book of Revelation. So it's just like, and it's been used in such negative ways that I think people have a difficult time reading it because they have that sense of its background, and so they don't even want to go near it, let alone read it.
How we imagine the future is going to affect the God that we have in our heads. Is this an angry God with the finger on the button who can't wait to punish or to smite? Or is this a God who suffers alongside us, who yearns for fellowship with us, who promises deep intimacy with God, who promises reconciliation with one another? I mean, we've got to balance that image of God, or we have to put that image of God, that characterization of God, into conversation with what we understand our future to look like. And so this matters because certain proponents of rapture theology, in my experience at least, talk about God as if God is just this angry, vengeful, almost killing machine who just can't wait to destroy certain things. And then salvation is only about rescue out of. It's not about me serving my neighbor necessarily, or it's not about me reconciling to those I've been estranged from. It's not about me necessarily learning how to live in a more just and perhaps kind of dignified relationship with the society and with the earth itself. It's really all about, Jesus, please take me somewhere else. Right? Jesus, please just restart, let's reboot this whole system and go some other place.
It's part of the fabric of how we've understood, or how the church has understood God and Jesus. And so to have sort of a background or a substance of that, oh, this is where this is coming from, and oh, I recognize the Lamb of God, oh, I recognize this language, and to put that sort of language of those hymns and the liturgy sort of back in its context and say, oh, this is where it's coming from, and this is what it could mean, and I wonder what it meant for those people, those churches.
I can't say for sure what the future is going to look like, but I do think that the way in which God is described in the Old Testament, the way in which Jesus discloses God in the Gospels, looks much more like a God who is very concerned about what is justice, what is righteousness, what does forgiveness and reconciliation, what do all of those things look like now? And how do we start to live into those as preparation for, or as prelude to, the bigger fullness of salvation that God has yet to bring into being?